Oh my god, did you guys see that? If you're not subscribed right now, what are you even doing? I mean, wow, what a near-death experience. Whoever's driving that needs to be sued. But yeah, only 95% of you guys are subscribed, which is a number that makes me want to pull my hair out again. So subscribe today, like, to become a Heisenberger. And, yeah, bye. Jesse, check the analytics. Though it's not even been a year since I began, I've already reviewed a number of my favorite shows of all time, and I tend to focus on discussing series that I've already watched and enjoyed since I'm passionate enough about them to devote production time towards such a product. However, there is one major exception to this, and it's what you're seeing right now. Breaking Bad was a show I had heard a number of great things about, though I had never even considered watching it until a sudden wave of people sprouted up, both online and in person, who told me that I had to watch it, and my nickname literally became Walter White. I eventually planned to see what all the fuss was about, but still wasn't exactly convinced to dive straight in. That happens with a lot of critically acclaimed shows since I tend to want to begin watching them. However, they're so expansive and time-consuming that I continuously delay my descent into their catalog of episodes. But as a 200 subscriber special promise, Breaking Bad had to be the first series that I'd cross off of my long list. In August of this year, I began watching it, and though I wasn't immediately hooked, I kept watching and watching until I was completely obsessed. This happens with a lot of the shows I like, from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia to Stranger Things, but Breaking Bad is one of the few super serious drama shows that I've had the patience to sit through, and boy has it set the bar impossibly high for any others that I watch. So the fact that a show with no elements of horror and relatively minuscule comedic relief managed to hook me just as much, if not more, than all the other shows I hold dear, and so many years after it originally aired, too, is quite the achievement, I'd say. If you don't know, which probably applies to less than 1% of you, the show follows a genius chemistry teacher named Walter White, who is suddenly and shockingly diagnosed with lung cancer on his 50th birthday. Life really begins to come down harder and harder on him as the days go by, but his brother-in-law Hank Schrader laughingly invites him to witness the DEA-led raid of a nearby meth lab, which gives our main man Walt a devious idea. The concept is incredibly interesting from the very beginning, and though I was initially quite confused about how the writers could possibly take what seemed like a plot that could be showcased in around a single season and make it into 5, it quickly became clear what the plan they had from the very beginning was, and the way they executed it was even more incredible to witness. It took me around 5 weeks, but I finally completed the show, and once I did, I was nothing but speechless. Obviously, I'm not going to offer you some sort of horrific, misguided hot take that this is a bad show. Not at all. I love it just like everyone else on the planet seems to. But I want to break down exactly what made me love it and how my experience evolved. And before I seriously get into this, I just want to mention how nice I find it that there's finally an incredible main character named Walter, since it's not a very common name.
Everything should have been 1, 2, 3, but recently something has happened to me. Everything always came easily, but today I woke up and felt nothing. Could I be finally finding out that there's absolutely nothing worth shouting about? Faced with the choice of just losing my voice, I'd rather shut up and say nothing. On the outside, we have to stick together. On the downside, you just get in the way. I see grey skies, and I feel a little better. I see grey skies ahead, and it's fine by me. Oh, all the right people seem squeaky clean. Well, all the right people mean nothing to me. Cheating and creeping just to stay on track. They'll offer one hand, they'll put a knife in your back. You notice that something is terribly wrong when they offer the world, then they turn and they're gone. They knew from the start you could never belong. You came from the outside, you'll stay on the outside.
How many views? Please, how many? Why do I even bother? Okay. Maybe if I skip lunch I can just finish an extra one. delay that one, and then maybe spend 2 hours to make a filler. And then with that, I can get a couple more, at least 500 more this week to stave off losing my status. And before that, I need something big, but God, I really have a few days left. Maybe I have to skip breakfast tomorrow too. Just wake up, no sleep. No. Then I can do it. Then I can do it. Then I can. Okay, what's this now? Hello? Lydia? What do you want? Hey, it's me, your friend, Lydia Reddit-Quayle. Now, just ignore the fact that I'm a sentient baseball cap, because you seriously have got to watch this video, Walt. It's amazing. This guy is seen giving $200,000 to a starving homeless orphan child that doesn't have working legs. What a kind, brilliant content creator. You gotta watch it, man. I don't know if I can do that. I'm already really behind on work because I took a few minutes to think. I need to get caught up again. Come on, man, just watch it, please. Alright. I'll watch it. This moron. This is what people can't get enough of. Why am I even trying? This garbage. This is what people talk about. This is what people like. Everything down the drain. No. How do I find this moron's number? Pick up, you son of a... Hello. Is this a guy from the clickbait video?
Clickbait? Listen, man, I don't know what you're...
Don't try to lie to me. I see right through your lies like a typical ionic bond. Now, I have been working day in and day out, year after year, and it has gotten me nowhere. But you seem to know the key to all of this. I'm sick of being left in the dust. I want in.
Send me a video so I know it's like legit, yo.
I already have one, you idiot. I've been prepared for something like this for a long time. I'll send it to you. Jesse, we need a clickbait.
Damn, so you just want to like break Ballartia or something?
Yes, I do, Jesse. It's Ballardian time. One of the first things that stuck out to me, and most likely will stick out to you as well if you watch this show, is how the characters are handled. As I said, Walter is the main character of the show, but there are so many more of them to dig into, and they're all so deeply layered, complex, and brilliantly crafted that I barely know where to begin. I suppose I'll start with the characters that are there from the very beginning, including Walter, Skylar, Walter Jr., Hank, Marie, and Jesse. Walter is probably the easiest way to begin analyzing the show and its characters, so he'll be the first one that I address. Walter Hartwell White is by far one of the most recognizable main characters in television history, and for good reason. The basic idea that created him was to turn Mr. Chips into Scarface, both of which I've never seen, but I get the concept behind it. Seeing an innocent, pure family man become corrupted and turned into a horrific criminal is an extremely compelling character arc idea, and it's obviously pulled off perfectly. It's one thing to just see him go from one to another and then look back upon what he was like at the very start once you finally finish the series, but it's a whole other discussion when you dig deep into the way his transition in between is written. He does many horrific things that build in severity and elaboration and planning as the series progresses, keeping us on the edges of our seats as this man who, at one point was very sympathetic, turns into a total monster. One of the things that's so great about his character is the fact that everyone has a different opinion about him. The show is presented in a way that allows the viewer to make their own conscious decisions about the characters. For example, you could say that Walter lost your sympathy from the second he first killed someone, hell, from the second he cooked meth, or you could have always been with him from beginning to end, and it's all up to you. Spoiler alert, but for me personally, he had my sympathy up until he killed Mike in Season 5. But how can I excuse all the other horrible acts that he engaged in? Well, it's because there was always some sort of reasonable justification for them. Does it make it right or just in my eyes? No. Would I do the same? No, of course not, but it always makes sense why Walt does the things he does from start to finish, which is so realistic, and most of the characters in this show are like that. They always have something backing up their every move, which is very grounded and realistic. It would be impossible to believe that Walt could go an extended period of time without getting caught if he didn't act simply for specific reasons and only when truly necessary. Oh, what's that? You don't believe me that his actions were necessary? Well, I was planning on breaking them down anyway, so let's do so and see what I mean. In Season 1, he kills Crazy 8 and possibly some people in TwitCo's building, but they were all criminals who directly placed him in a situation of danger. What is great about the Crazy 8 situation specifically, though, is the conversation that the two of them have. We get sort of drawn into Crazy 8 and know things about him, making it nearly impossible to root for his death. But Walter does kill him, however, with just as many horrible thoughts of guilt and sadness as anyone in the audience. Season 1 is slower than the others, but it does a phenomenal job of showcasing guilt within Walt and Jesse after their first horrific criminal situation in the first few episodes, and this specific scene is the best example of that. The reveal of the missing plate and the actual death are also great, with pure misery, dread, and regret over the purposefully conceived need for this to even happen filling the air. Then, another masterful scene near the end of Season 2 shows Walter letting Jesse's girlfriend, Jane, die. This is a heartbreaking part that's quite shocking and hard to sit through, but we still see true guilt and sadness within Walter's eyes as it happens. It causes a cavalcade of effects by proxy, which I'll get into later, but we can tell that he knows everything happening here is horrible, and yet I still get why he did it. Listen. Jane was going to blackmail him, putting his whole operation in jeopardy. She essentially stole his business partner from him, and she was constantly getting Jesse high on heroin, which, if you don't know, is bad for you. So it makes total sense for Walt not to save her, and though it's still quite awful, there is a reason that removes any true hatred I could have for Walt at this point in the show. In Season 3, he makes Jesse kill Gale, who, while a relatively good soul, was getting involved in the crystal meth business, so if Walt didn't get him, someone else probably would have quite quickly. Not to mention, doing this literally saved Walter's life, so again, I get it. But then he poisons a kid, and things get a little bit muddier. Now, yes, it is reprehensible in every way, but in all fairness, he's a scientific genius, so he only gave the kid enough to make him sick, knowing it wouldn't kill him. I think that automatically lifts a lot of the weight of his actions, but again, it's still quite sickening. Once he killed Mike, though, I drew the line, because I love Mike, and it was the least justified of all of these. So yeah, Walter is a truly divisive character, not because you have to decide if you love or hate him, but because you have to decide when you stopped loving to love him, and when you started hating to love him. Through the entire series, I couldn't get enough of him and his attitude, his mannerisms, everything about him is enticing and lovable to an alarming degree. I never knew I would fall in love with a 52-year-old meth kingpin from a TV show, but Breaking Bad did that, and that's quite the achievement. And yeah, I also like him because he's one of the most relatable characters on TV due to his name, love of chemistry, and low tolerance for bullcrap, but let's just set that aside and move on. After this, we have his family, including his wife Skylar and son Walter Jr., or Flynn. One thing I can say is I love the character of Walter Jr., as we get a multitude of heartbreaking and impactful scenes like the one where Walt is totally out of it and accidentally calls his son Jesse. Their conversation about Walter's grandfather, and the explosive phone call near the end of the series. The one about the grandfather specifically is incredibly painful to watch in its relatability, and digs deep into the idea of death and memory, specifically foreshadowing how tragic the thought of Walt's family's memory of him being so horrific is. He makes it explicitly clear in this scene that he wants to be remembered fondly, but because of his own choices, that won't be the case. Instead of being remembered as the lovely family man who has gone too soon, or was given a second shot at life by the philanthropy of his friends, which he doesn't accept purely out of ego and hatred of being humiliated, he will forever live on as the evil Heisenberg. Walter Jr. doesn't take any crap from anyone and is a very realistic, sensible character who you can really end up rooting for and sympathizing with near the end. The hell that this kid is put through doesn't really hit you until after the end of the show, but it's incredibly impactful. And who can forget how great he is at eating breakfast? Also, it's so cool how his name fluctuates between Walter Jr. and Flynn depending on the relationship he has with his dad, and the fact that it's Flynn at the very end once again is yet another symbol of how the memory of Walter White has faded away. Moving on from that, though, we have Skylar and Marie. Now, I don't absolutely hate these characters, as some do. I think they have very annoying bits, but at the end of the day, I also feel incredibly bad for them as well. This is what I love about the characters in this show. There are things to love and hate about everyone, and it's up to you to judge them, just like with people in real life. Skylar is somewhat annoying near the start, and there are cringeworthy scenes galore when she cheats on Walter with her boss, but at the end of the day, near the end of the series, when she finally takes a stand and tries to navigate through the horrific ending events, I can't help but be right there with her and root for her in multiple scenes. Smoking while pregnant, cheating on her husband, helping him launder his money, all of these things are very scummy to varying degrees, but she still means well most of the time. Marie I feel very similar about as well, since I really feel connected to her near the end of the series, but at the start, I hated her. But who can forget Hank? Hank is in many ways meant to be the hero of the show, but he's also written to have a misguided nature that creates the same level of moral ambiguity within his character that exists for many of the others. Now, does he poison a child? No, but he does have many emotional outbursts and is clearly shown to be hot-headed and easily agitated. But this plays a role not only in fleshing him out, but also in the overall themes of the show. We can see a lot of parallels between him and Walter, actually, and there's another character later on in the series who has similarities and differences with Hank and Walt as well. While Walt begins with clear motivations to help his family and survive his cancer, he still has other options, though he refuses to accept them, and this slight desire to actually delve into devious activity grows more and more throughout the series until it's taken hold of him, and he no longer has a good basis for what he does. He wants to create his own empire and become famous, but at the same time, Hank's seemingly good nature to help and protect people from drugs develops into its own very obsessive hunt for fame and recognition. Hank can't give up on the Heisenberg case whatsoever. He's obsessed with it, and he knows that in taking it down, he'll grow to become just as renowned as the criminal for whom he's looking, causing him to lose his mind just like Walter. And all of this ties into the last bit of the puzzle that's created at the very beginning, Jesse Pinkman. Jesse is not exactly my favorite character, far from it, but I do think what they achieve through him thematically is nothing short of groundbreaking. Hank and Walter are both mostly good people at heart, with small parts of them veiling more sinister intent growing into something uncontrollable by the end. But Jesse seems to be the exact opposite. We witness Walter descend into the enriching life of a criminal where he is totally in control, and Hank just gets dragged down with him due to the obsessive system that he's a part of. It very clearly comments on our society and specifically our perception of the criminal underworld. It demonstrates that just about anyone's most minor evils can be extrapolated to the point that they're an unrecognizable monster, and that those meant to defend the supposedly good from the supposedly evil can themselves be destroyed by their work. The American system specifically is so focused on a glorified system of detainment and fighting to the point that we literally call it the war on drugs, and the effects of this are seen clearly in Hank's development. Jesse, though, is meant to be the bad guy. He's the one that we should absolutely hate and want to get caught, locked away, and destroyed, right? No, by the end he's one of the few characters that I was totally rooting for. That's because even though our society's typical perception would dictate that drug dealers like him are the worst scum on planet Earth, he doesn't fit that at all. Obviously, cooking and selling meth is wrong by all means. I'm not here to defend that in any way, shape, or form. But what we see in Jesse is a truly good man dragged into the worst possible situation. He wasn't able to fit the mold crafted for him and just gave up on living a typical, respectable life, so he rushed off to criminal activity. But even that became insecure for him. He's kind of a jerk, he doesn't always do the right thing, and he also has emotional outbursts, but he's put through such an immense amount of awful stuff because of Walter's constant exploitation of him. Walt uses him like a pawn to get exactly what he wants, even with regard to the effect it'll have on him. Normally, I describe exploitative abuse as being without regard for the emotional impact on the victim, but in this case, Walter specifically makes his move in such a calculating, cunning way that he knows the anguish it causes Jesse will simply open the door for more instances of this. Walt plays him like a fiddle, same with Hank near the end of the series and Gus in Season 4. But with Jesse, it constantly reappears and keeps building and building until Jesse, the low-life druggie from the beginning, has become the victim who always wanted to do the right thing, tried just to have a family, and wanted to live normally after seeing the horrific side of his business. And this ties into the ultimate symbolism for the show in my eyes. It seems like Walter starts out as incredibly relatable and sympathetic, and slowly becomes more distant from the viewer's own opinions, and that's mostly true, but at the same time, if you look at his alter ego's name, you can find something out. Walter is referred to as Heisenberg when he's dealing with criminal matters, named after the German physicist Werner Heisenberg. But what did the real Heisenberg discover, though? Well, I haven't seen anyone talking about this, but I think it's an intentional decision made by the writers. Heisenberg discovered the uncertainty principle in quantum physics, which essentially dictates that the exact position and exact velocity of an object do not play a true role in nature, and that both cannot be measured simultaneously. And I think that applies quite perfectly to the Heisenberg that exists in Breaking Bad. As we see, we can't really tell what Walter's planning or thinking at many pivotal moments, and even if we do know the exact position that he's in while enacting some scheme of his, we're not certain of how the rest will play out and how quickly it will. Even when his position or velocity seems obvious, the other is not easy to figure out, making him a true enigma of a main character. But, moving past this, there's one more character I briefly want to address from early on in the show, TwitCo Salamanca. Now, let me just say that I love his character. He's the one who really made me want to keep watching, especially in episode 6, and his crazy, unhinged nature is so intimidating. They do a phenomenal job building tension with his help, and before we move into characters that appear later on, I just want to say that TwitCo, while not the most recognizable villain, is one of the most impactful for me personally. Okay, Jesse. I'm ready.
So, Mr. White, you wanna record a fake video where you supposedly get hit by someone's RV?
All I have to do is stabilize the video and walk into this RV. And then, chippity chop in the editing room. It'll look like I got hit by it. Slap a title on there that'll attract all the morons, and it'll become the biggest viral sensation since Keyboard Cat.
Sounds good to me, but won't you get hurt running into it?
No, Jesse, I'm not going to hurt myself. It's a simple procedure. Okay, wish me luck. Hey, all my Heisenbergers. I'm going through a nice stroll today in the trailer park, and I hope no meth heads come and get me. Oh my... Oh. Jesse, I just auto-uploaded a new video. Check the analytics and send them to me.
Here you go, Mr. White. This is what it says.
Yes, Jesse?
Mr. White, I got an idea. I think I know how we can improve the analytics.
Whoa. What are you talking about?
Well, you see, we just need to get people involved. We aren't reaching a real audience, you know. But if we get other social medias involved, we can really get lots of protons, yo.
Protons? Do you even know what protons are?
Yeah, protons. I've seen Ghostbusters. I know what those are.
Jesus Christ, how was I ever your teacher? Okay, you mean promotion.
Yeah, promotion. I know a guy who runs the biggest social media ever, yo. You should talk with him.
Huh. Hello, sir. I've heard some impressive things about you. And I've been wondering one simple thing. Is it true that you're involved with the art of clickbait?
Whoa, who the hell told you that, old man? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Really? Your name is TwitCo Salamanca, right? Well, I've seen your platform, and there's a lot of clickbait on it. And I'm smarter than the government, so I know that can't be a coincidence.
Okay, so what do you want then? You gonna blackmail me? You do know I beat a man to death with his sack of money, right? I don't think you want to mess with me.
No. I just want you to consider our offer of promoting our content on your platform. Heck, we'll even join it. And we're normal people. Isn't it nice to be surrounded by non-crazies for once?
I guess. You know, it's kind of wild that someone could, could even be able to be on my platform without losing it. I mean, seriously, you're going to have to deal with some of the worst people ever on here.
Oh. Oh, really? Like what?
Well, criminals, people who think zoophilia is acceptable, people who like Death Strand.
Excuse me?
Yeah, man, it gets pretty serious. But hey, if you can handle it, then we're in business.
Yeah, well, if you want to take a look, I'm uploading some thumbnails of ours, clickbait ones, to the chat. If you'd like to, download that file and take a look at them.
Wow. So you're telling me that you want to bring more normal people onto my platform and give me more clickbait? Brilliant plan. Now let me open this file. Wait a minute.
You got one detail wrong. This is not clickbait.
No!
So long, and burn in hell. Oh yeah, Jesse, the deal is off. TwitCo is a maniac. Wanted me to dwell amongst Death Stranding fans. Is there anyone else you know who might be able to promote our stuff? Moving on to characters that appear later in the show, we have quite the formidable cast. A lot of them would be considered villains, but as I previously explored, the brilliant moral ambiguity of this show makes it so that nearly all of them can be. In Season 2, we're introduced to 3 of the 5 major characters that are left to discuss, namely Saul Goodman, Mike Ehrmantraut, and Gustavo Fring. Saul Goodman is immediately a standout with a scummy nature and witty remarks, making him a truly hilarious character in a show that is typically soul-crushing and horrific. I know I seem like someone who'd hate that because I often get annoyed when serious pieces of media have comedic relief thrown into them, but Saul is an example of how to do that correctly. There are many hilarious moments, such as the conversation between Walt and Jesse about ricin very early on, and in the last season there's some hilarious banter as well, but Saul is truly where the comedy kicks in. He's seldom serious and often the butt of a joke, as the contrast between his zany nature and the serious tones of everyone around him create a legitimately hilarious contrast. If a show about drug dealers with some of the most depressing scenes ever put to screen can also make me laugh out loud, that's something that will make me like it more than it could ever detract from my experience. He would eventually get his own prequel show, Better Call Saul, but in this show, he's a great, if less vital, character. Usually it's his connections to other people with specific skill sets that play a role in the story, and not him himself. And speaking of that, Mike is by far the most important of these connections. As I said back when I was talking about Walter, Mike is such an amazing character who I love so much to the point that his death made me lose sympathy for Walter, who is still my favorite character on the show and perhaps in television history. But why do I love Mike that much? Well, to put it simply, he doesn't care about anything. He's the ultimate cool guy who always keeps the situation under control, and his calm attitude under these horrific circumstances is honestly funny. There are moments where even he loses it, and that's a sign that things have really gone off the rails. But most of the time, he is relaxed in the face of ultimate danger, and his constant fighting with Walt later in the show is absolutely priceless. It's also interesting because we see his only true motivation is to get money for his granddaughter, which is similar to Walter's supposed motive to help his family, but while Mike sticks true to this and ends up losing because of it, Walter leaves that behind once his true selfish desires take control. In terms of villains outside of TwitCo, we have the cousins in Season 3, who are nothing short of pure evil. No motive, no reason, just merciless, cold evil, and that's what makes them truly terrifying. In addition to this, we have Hector Salamanca, who doesn't even speak since he can't, but in the 2 flashback scenes involving him, he is showcased to be so absolutely, unspeakably horrible that he made the twins, the cousins, into victims. The entire Salamanca family is highly effective for the first few seasons, but what about the final one? Well, in the last season of the show, we no longer have a focus on Mexican drug lords or cartel members, but rather homegrown American psychos. Hey, wait a minute. Todd Alquist and Uncle Jack are incredibly effective as well in my view. The series continued to raise the bar for pure evil when it transitioned from TwitCo to the twins, but with these two Nazi scumbags, I don't think they necessarily top the twins or Hector in terms of being truly reprehensible humans, since they show signs of reason, but at the same time, that makes them even more impactful in some scenes. The twins are still the best of the villains I've mentioned so far, but Todd and Uncle Jack are both nearly as good because of the fact that, despite their clear awareness of reason and fairness, they still act like monsters. Tuco killed people that set off his temper, and the twins killed anyone in the way, but Todd actively murders a mother and child just to punish Jesse for trying to escape his compound, and without a sign of emotion. Massacring prison inmates and an entire crew of buyers, killing Hank despite Walt's pleas, everything they do is so absolutely repulsive, yet they don't care whatsoever. From beginning to end, the villains in this show are unmatched. I legitimately haven't ever seen a show in which the villains can compete with this. I mean, Vecna from Stranger Things is awesome and all, but come on. These are just unbeatable. And I haven't even mentioned the best one, Gus. Gus is the absolute best villain in this show in my view, partially due to the fact that he's not pure evil. He's a perfectly reasonable person who honestly seems nice and lovely on the outside, and even when Walter works with him for nearly an entire season, he grants him lots of freedom, cooperates, and doesn't do anything actively awful. There are some awful results of his operations, such as some of his workers recruiting and murdering a child, but he's still seemingly down to earth, and there are some awesome moments where he's even the one we're rooting for, such as when he kills the cartel members in the episode Salute. But after all is said and done, he totally snaps because Walt pushes him past his limit, and he transforms into the most intimidating, scary, smart, cunning, brilliant, seemingly unbeatable villain in a TV show. Once Walt essentially declares war on him because he has no other options, it becomes an intense game of strategic moves, and Gus is always one step ahead. It's amazing. A lot of what makes Gus such an effective character, though, is the acting, which I'll discuss next.
Hello? Is this the manager of Los Gatos Bandidos?
Yes, this is in fact the manager of Los Gatos Bandidos talking. How may I be of assistance for you today?
Well, I saw how instantly you've been able to create an amazing platform, and I just wanted to gush to you about how incredible I find every aspect of it.
I'm very happy to hear that, sir. Now, are there any other reasons for your call?
Yes, there will be. Yo sé la verdad, Gustavo. No puedes ocultarlo. Pero tengo una oferta. Llámame a un lugar privado y lo hablamos. ¿Comprende?
Gus, I'm so glad you decided to call. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the development in which one of your largest competitors has ceased to exist after its founder was charged with possession of deviant art posts, and it has to do very much with that.
Yes, I've indeed heard of the story regarding the man named TwitCo Salamanca. What makes you bring it up today?
Well, I'm sure you're wondering who was behind it. Well, it certainly wasn't him, I'll tell you that. He was crazy, but he wasn't that crazy. I watched his platform die, and I can do the same for any competitor you want, as long as you just consider my offer.
Listen, Mr. White, I'm sure you are a fine man who has not indulged in any wrongdoings. I can assume you are an upstanding citizen just as I am.
Really? Then I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I put your company's name through a translator, right? Yes, the folks at Metadrigal will be very unhappy if they figure out what Los Datos Bandidos means in Spanish. So, not only do I have something I can do for you if you accept my offer, but I have something I can do to you if you don't. All I'm asking is for you to promote my clickbait content on your platform. That's it.
Mr. White, I'm very flattered by your offer. I do think I will be accepting it. However, with one small stipulation. First, I want you to prove how tough you are. I can't just go around hiring anyone. I'm sure smart men like you will understand. So please just get along with the man I'll be sending over shortly. He's quite old and hard to pay attention to, but if you can get through it, I'll know for sure that you have a better attention span than the other people out there these days. If you're up to it.
That sounds perfectly fine. Thank you, Mr. Fringe.
Yes, I have another job for you to do. I'm gonna need you to take someone out.
Before I talk about my favorite episodes in the show, I want to discuss how amazing the acting is. The acting is truly my favorite thing about the entire series, as I don't think there's a single lackluster performance at any moment. From the extremely minor background characters to the main cast, everyone does a great job. However, there are a few standouts. Bryan Cranston as Walter White is perhaps the greatest performance in television history, as, despite so many twists and turns in the arc and development of his character, Bryan always keeps up and never slips away from the truth of Walter White. You still see what once was there as an innocent man, even by the end, and it's played with so much masterful complexity. Just like with particles in the real world, they can never be destroyed, they just change form, and that similarly takes effect in this show as, even when characters die, they live on in some way. For example, there are very small details that show Walter taking on traits of people he kills, which just underlines my point and is absolute genius. I also want to single out Giancarlo Esposito as Gus due to one simple thing: his face. Whenever Gus is speaking, even when he's being totally calm and collected, you can see that something much more agitated is slowly brewing underneath. He communicates so much through his eyes and gives off every single possible emotion while still holding it in a brilliant display of realism. It fleshes out his character so much as you pick apart his true emotions in each scene as well. Aaron Paul is also brilliant as Jesse the whole way through, but I want to single out this scene in the final episode of the show where he escapes the Nazi compound. Look at that. Nearly every emotion conceivable would be flowing through his mind if this really happened. And we see that in his reaction. He's relieved, he's elated, he's depressed, he's letting out the anger that he couldn't when captive, and he's hollowed out inside because of everything that's happened to him. But what little emotion is left can't help but feel so happy after breaking out. And I think that really sums up the acting that this show has as a whole. From Walter's constant swaying from one scheme to another, accompanied by every possible feeling, to Gus's deep stare that tells its own story, Hank's desperate attempts to seem tough and unstoppable despite being destroyed inside by his own obsessive hunt for success, Skylar's silent cries for help growing into something uncontrollable by the end, and Jesse's unspeakable torment. Every single actor in this show deserves a goddamn award and to be remembered forever for what they achieved here.
Hello. Hello. Why don't you come in and take a seat?
Hello, Walter. And, no. I think I'll stand.
Well, sir, I've heard you're quite the interesting political figure. Mr. Fringe Political Belief sent you, didn't he? Well, in that case, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, Walter,
I actually started this whole social media thing, if you can even believe it.
Really? So you were like the creator of YouTube?
No.
Well, then what platform?
You know.
No. No. No, don't say it. No, no, no.
Yeah, that's right, Walter. I made MikeSpace, and I'm still proud of it. Many say it's the worst platform out there, but I don't care what they say. Now look, I know that isn't easy to hear, but if you can look past the fact that I made the most outdated social media ever, I think we can work quite well together, Walter.
Well, I think this can all be made a little bit better if I make a quick phone call.
What do you think you're doing, Walter?
Leaving no stones unturned.
In order to give you all a more focused look into this series and what I love about it, I'd like to count down my 10 favorite episodes from all 5 seasons. These are entirely based on my own opinion and what I thought, so if you disagree with any of this, then that's totally alright. Ready? Let's start. Number 10, 4 Days Out. Kicking off my list is 4 Days Out from Season 2, a very interesting episode that mainly focuses on exploring Walt and Jesse's characters when they're in a very dangerous, desperate situation. There's an episode that does a similar thing which will appear on my list shortly since I believe that one actually does it better, but this episode is nothing to scoff at. From start to finish, this is a thrilling episode and it really uses suspense perfectly. The mistakes that Jesse makes continue to build and build until a checkmate scenario of deadly proportions must be faced, and it's so hopeless to think that it might be the end for these two characters. Walt specifically has a very depressing storyline in this episode, as he thinks that he'll die from cancer within a very short time and simply wants to make as much money for his family as possible before he goes. But he can't even manage that. His dying wish can't even be respected. It crushes some of the humanity within him while making Jesse grow more mature and intelligent, and we really see the effects of those specific development arcs throughout the entire show, so it's an important episode overall. Not to mention, the last scene where it's revealed that Walt has gone into remission had me actively crying tears of joy alongside him and his family, since I, at this point, truly cared about his character and felt bad for him. Number 9. Fly. Yeah, it's a controversial episode. Yeah, it has the worst IMDb rating, but people on IMDb also think that Downfall of Walter the Germany Ball deserves a higher rating than The Dark Knight, so who cares? I think this is a phenomenal episode, and you can whine about the bottle episode structure all you want, but I think it's put to great use. Using the incredibly simplistic concept of Jesse and Walter being stuck in the lab with a possible contaminant, namely a fly, this episode brilliantly fleshes out both characters, just like in 4 Days Out, except considering how simple the premise here is in comparison to that episode, I think it's even more impressive here. There are lots of funny moments such as Walt falling off the ledge and banging into a metal silo, but at the same time there's an insanely serious, impactful moment in the second half where Walter gives a speech to Jesse about his life. Bryan Cranston gives his best performance of the series up to this point here, and it's one of the most tragic, heartbreaking rants in TV history, perfectly adding even more depth to Walt's character and his outlook on life and death. And in the end, I just find it endlessly fascinating how this episode gets me involved in two guys trying to kill a fly. In one episode, there's a prison massacre where a guy gets lit on fire, and then this one just involves trying to swat a bug away, and yet it's the better episode. Number 8, Crazy Handful of Nothing. Now, this one's pretty simple. When I first started watching Breaking Bad, I liked it, but I didn't really get into it until this episode. I like the fact that, similar to the pilot episode, it begins and ends in a circular fashion to hook us in with the thought of, How did things end up like that? And there's also one of the most clever dialogue scenes in the early parts of the show here. Hank and Walter play poker together as questions fly about, but their vague nature allows them to, at first, be interpreted as prying into Walt's evil actions. It's brilliant. In addition to this, there's a lecture that Walt gives to his students in chemistry class about rapid chemical reactions, a brilliant symbol for his rapid, explosive reaction to the challenge that TwitCo provides for him and his subsequent development into a completely different man. But you all know why this episode is really here, the final scene. It's just awesome. Walter blows up TwitCo's hideout after convincing him that the fulminated mercury that he brought is actually more meth in an amazing twist that results in one of the most satisfying, memorable scenes in the whole series and the best moment of the entire first season. Number 7, ABQ. Finale to Season 2 is my second favorite season finale in the show, even though many have cited it as a low point. I actually love ABQ due to how well it shows the end result of this continuous domino effect throughout the entire season. Just like how Crazy Handful of Nothing started with cryptic shots to hook us into what happened at the end, the entire second season does the exact same, and it all culminates in this episode. It's an episode that truly showed me how this show ended up having 5 seasons due to the emotional twists and turns in the relationships between Walt and Jesse, Walt and his son, and Walt and Skylar, all of which build up guilt and tension throughout. This is especially clear in the emotional scene where Jesse cries in Walt's arms after so much horrible stuff occurs to him. At the same time that he comforts Jesse, Walt knows that he's the cause of Jesse's suffering, a thought that is haunting for him and the audience. We also get Walt revealing that he has a second cell phone unintentionally to Skylar, leading to her understanding the truth and setting up Season 3 very well. And of course, the air disaster is a masterful, insane moment that left me in total awe. I never expected something so colossal to cause the floating trash in Walter's pool, but after the episode, I learned to expect the unexpected from Breaking Bad. Number 6, Dead Freight. Tension is the name of the game with this one. It's defined entirely by the genius train robbery done by Walt, Jesse, Mike, and Todd, which continues to build and build as they scope out how they'll pull it off. Similar to the air disaster from ABQ, this insane, seemingly over-the-top premise is done in a grounded, believable, and awesome way. The scene with Lydia being forced to act for the DEA in a dimly lit area is also a great showcase of the morality of Mike, Jesse, and Walter, and a nerve-wracking, terrifying display of fear being used as a weapon, but everything with the train is just unforgettably amazing. It's some of the best narrative storytelling I've ever seen, the pacing helping with that massively, and combined with one of the best cliffhangers in the whole series where Todd shoots a child witness without a second thought. This episode is nothing short of a masterpiece. Number 5, Face Off. The final episode of Season 4. This is my favorite season finale on the show, and it's for one simple reason. Gus. This is the episode all about Gus versus Walter, and it is glorious. We see this game of strategy growing as each move on the chessboard between these two has massive reverberations everywhere. It's so satisfying to see realistic consequences and impactful moments as a result of each of their plans. Especially with Walter's plan at the end involving using Hector Salamanca to blow up Gus, things just get very intense and very clever as the episode goes on, and the final set of scenes is perfection. From Gus's death to Walter claiming victory confidently, the destruction of the lab, and the final shot of a flower in Walt's garden hinting that he poisoned a child. Everything here is engraved in my mind for a good reason. It's a textbook lesson on how to end a season of TV.
Hello, Mr. White?
Jesse, you're just the person I wanted to hear from. Did you get the phone number from Metadrical?
Yes, but you said to not, call unless things went, really bad, yo.
I know. Things are really bad. Call them now. No. I don't know what the hell you think you're doing, Walter, but you gotta stop it now. It's over, Mike. It's too late for you. Say your goodbyes. God damn it. Now I have to hide the involvement with Gus. I had a good thing going. God, you are one dumb son of a gun, aren't you? Oh, please, Mike. You're the one who's about to get carted off to a cell. I wouldn't exactly say I'm the dumb one. Really, then? So I'm sure no one will ever be able to find out that you were the original owner of that zip file, then? Yeah, I found out. Bye, Walter. Have a nice life. Hi, all my Heisenbergers. I just want to let you know that no matter what allegations come out about me in the coming days, they're all totally false. They are trying to drag my name through the mud, and they will not get away with it. You hear me? But with that being said, have an A1 day, everyone, and goodbye.
Number 4, Crawl Space. Also in late season 4, Crawl Space is one of the best episodes of the show due to the tension, acting, and, oddly enough, music. It's an episode so amazing that the only issue I have with it is the fact that in it, Jesse plays Sonic 06. The first pivotal moment comes from a tense negotiation between Walt and Gus in the desert, and that sets off the powder keg as Walter desperately tries to retrieve his money from the crawl space in his house. The final moments of this episode are really what define it, and they're truly transcendent. The tense, racing music that gradually becomes dark and booming once Walt finally loses it, along with Anna Gunn and Bryan Cranston's genius performances, create a complex, layered display of Walt's new insanity. He laughs maniacally as Heisenberg, seemingly excited at the prospect of having to take Gus down by his own means instead of running away, but at the same time he weeps and screams in pain as Walter, and we can see Walter getting sucked out of the body until there's no good left. After I saw this scene, my jaw was on the goddamn floor. It's that good.
Where is it? Call. Wait. Pick up, you son of a... Jesse! What were you thinking? If you hadn't sent me that snap, we would have been out of the water!
Yo, Mr. White, chill. It's Snapchat. The message will get deleted and the authorities won't suspect a thing.
Oh. Oh, Jesse. That's nice.
Yeah, no problem. But there's one more thing. You should check the analytics on your latest TikTok.
What?
Number 3, Ozymandias. Regarded as the greatest episode in TV history by many, with the only 10 out of 10 audience rating to grace any piece of media on IMDb, Ozymandias is the clear climax of the entire series and by far its most thematically inspired moment. The episode immediately kicks off by continuing the exciting and heart-pounding shootout involving Hank and the neo-Nazi gang out in the desert from the previous episode. But, unlike with so many other times in the series, Hank doesn't get out of this one. He continuously beats out those he's fighting against and is always victorious in whatever shootout he gets caught up in, but this time, that isn't the case. Then we're given one of the most horrific scenes I've ever watched that I can still barely stand to look at, in which Walter begs for the life of Hank with everything he's got, and we're just left to sit and wait, wondering if his negotiations will work this time or not. After all, Hank's skill for bringing down people in gun combat has stopped being so effective. What if Walter can no longer talk his way out of a sticky situation? After pleading and pleading to Jack for Hank to be spared, Hank looks over to Walt and delivers one of the most impactful, saddening lines of all time.
You're the smartest guy I ever met. And you're too stupid to see. He made up his mind 10 minutes ago.
The complexity demonstrated by this sentence is incomprehensible. It's horrific and saddening to see that Hank has already accepted his death, but Walt simply forced him to sit there for agonizing moment after agonizing moment and wait for the trigger to finally be pulled. But there's something about this coming out of Hank's mouth, too, that just hurts to hear. He says the line in a way that really brings us back to when Walt and Hank got along better, before the truth was known. Even after Walter lied to him and did so many awful things, Hank still respects and loves him in a way. He knows that Walt's smart, and he knows that his care for family remains at this point, but he doesn't know if Walter even exists anymore, and the last sign of him dies with Hank. Respect is shared between them even though their goals are antithetical to one another, creating a heartbreaking contrast between what their connections lead to and how they individually get along. After Hank dies, though, Walter White is officially gone. He's now Heisenberg, just barely walking around in an outer shell, and this is immediately shown when he walks right up to Jesse, who, mind you, is about to be carted off to a non-life of captivity and misery, and simply tells him that he watched Jane die. Poisoning Brock, letting Jane die, making him kill Gale, everything Walter has done to Jesse seemed to have a purpose and make sense, but at this point that no longer matters to him. He has no more use for Jesse, so he simply tells the truth without a whiff of regret or emotion. Any semblance of the warm relationship that they seem to have at certain points is gone. There's one moment in particular where Walt comforts Jesse at his lowest point after Jane dies, and here it seems like there's nothing but love motivating what's happening. But after everything that occurs after that point, we can never truly tell what Walt does out of love and what he does for his own personal gain. Finally, the last scene that makes this such an incredible episode for me is where Walt comes home after everything that happens. He scrambles around to get everything packed up to save the family and start a new life, but Skylar won't have any of it. His power has built up over all of this time to the point that he's practically unstoppable, but he can't force them to do this. He can't control them anymore because this is his last act purely out of love. He wants to protect them, but that has become totally opposite to everything else he does, meaning his grip on emotionless, pure authority has slipped away. Skylar attacks him with a knife when he refuses to accept this fact, and then in a fit of rage, he nearly kills her. Walt Jr. steps into this horrific, unbridled catastrophe that explodes any possibility of his innocent life continuing down the right path, which causes Heisenberg to back away and plead for them to accept the excuse of family one last time, but he's no longer related to them at all. This is Ozymandias. Ozymandias is a poem about exactly this. A man who gets everything he could ever hope for in terms of fame, in terms of building up an empire and a name that nobody will ever forget, but in the process loses the true core of who he is and what that name truly means. He is Heisenberg, and he'll always be remembered for that, but he no longer has anything on a less superficial level to make his legitimate life worthwhile. In a last-ditch effort to dismiss this horrible revelation, he kidnaps his own baby and tries to at least hang on to her. The pinnacle of innocence, a baby that seemingly cannot perceive the evil that has taken over his existence, still cries for its mother as he holds it. We can look back through the show and see that he very rarely took care of this baby. He wasn't like a true father to her, so naturally, he can't even use that innate bond between infant and parent to shield himself from the crushing truths closing in on him slowly. This is an episode deserving of the 10 out of 10 score without a doubt, and even though it's not my favorite, I totally get why it would be for anyone. It's pulled off flawlessly with the acting, writing, direction, everything. This is the perfect Breaking Bad payoff episode, and I couldn't ask for a single part of it to be better. In the moment of watching it, I was simply so shocked and in awe that I couldn't let the emotions flow through me. But while writing this part of the review, I couldn't help but cry. Ozymandias is officially one of the 5 best episodes of any show I've ever watched.
What is he talking about? Oh my god. Wow. Oh my god. Oh my god, Jesse, we did it.
Yeah, Mr. White, we did it. The subs just keep rolling in for both of us after you tagged me. Good job, yo.
Yeah. Things might be going well for once.
Hey, TikTok guy, what are you doing?
Nothing. You know, a few months ago, you wouldn't even know who I am. But now everywhere I go, they recognize me. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, you can really go places at the drop of a hat. Especially when you stop putting so much effort in.
Yeah. Sure. Can I get the check, please?
Sure thing, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Number 2, Granite State. Now this is probably my most controversial opinion, but I actually think that Granite State, the episode after Ozymandias, is slightly better, or at least I liked it a little bit more. Now Ozymandias is still one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life, but this episode just does such an amazing job of feeling like an episode near the very end, especially with how it uses the full theme song at the end of the episode. It really makes things feel like they're coming full circle. I don't have a ton to say here, but it's a heartbreaking episode in so many ways for me, dealing with the aftermath of so much horrific trauma. From Andrea's death and Jesse's muffled screams thereafter, to Walter's conversation with his son who no longer looks up to him or loves him whatsoever at the end. This episode is full of depressing bits that just hit me so hard, and I love that. Is Ozymandias better? Well, when writing this, I realized that it probably is, but Granite State was slightly more impactful for me when I watched it for the first time, so it doesn't matter. Number 1, 1 minute. Not at all the obvious choice, I know. This episode is just an incredible thrill ride from start to finish. It begins with Hector Salamanca nearly killing one of his sons in one of the best demonstrations of his former menacing nature, and that sets the stage for the twins to rock the damn world in this episode. After this, there are two incredibly well-acted conversations. First, between Jesse and Walter after Jesse gets beat up by Hank, which is such a heartbreaking scene because the anger that Jesse tries to use to shield his inner sadness continues to show its cracks, and we can hear the innocent whimpers in his voice, which just show how sympathetic he is. It's one of the best examples of Aaron Paul's acting skills ever. Then, after this, we see Hank talk with Marie about how he feels like his life is unraveling, showing off the true despair that both of these men have in common because of the system that has made them into one another's enemy. It also perfectly showcases his trauma and the meaning he thinks he has as an agent, even though it just continues to make his life worse and worse and, as we see in his death, get him nowhere. However, the real reason this episode is my favorite of all time in Breaking Bad, and probably in any show I've ever seen, is because of the final scene. This intense fight between Hank and the twins is so unpredictable, brutal, masterfully constructed, and suspenseful in every way. As soon as I saw it, this became my favorite episode, and it still hasn't been topped, especially due to how I was in total awe seeing how one small detail in the fight led to its climax. I don't want to describe the fight anymore because I think everyone just needs to see it to understand, but it's immaculate and single-handedly makes this my favorite episode of one of my favorite shows.
Most viewed. Hi, all my Heisenbergers. I just want to let you know that no matter what allegations come out about me in the coming days, they're all totally false. This is what did it. Huh? This is what finally did it. Huh? What's this? Wow. This is an old one. I didn't care. Everything. For nothing. Or nothing. For everything. No. No. I give up.
Before I end everything off, I just quickly want to rate all of the seasons and talk briefly about my overall thoughts, starting with Season 1. Season 1 is very effective for what it is, as I think it introduces everything perfectly, while also having awesome moments like the plate scene and blowing up Tuco's hideout, and I actually love all the stuff involving Walt and his family as he has to reveal the cancer to them. It's incredibly hard to watch, especially since I personally have had connections to many people who passed away from it. I don't think it's insane or anything, but it really doesn't do anything wrong whatsoever, and despite occasional slumps and a slight feeling of directionlessness, there are still so many things to appreciate here. 4.5 out of 5. Season 2 is the most underrated season in my view, since I think it's brilliant. The first 2 episodes are incredibly tense and involve Walt and Jesse trying to stop Tuco, who is a phenomenal villain, as I said. Then we get 4 Days Out, the introductions of Saul, Gus, and Mike, the heart-wrenching domestic instability shown in the episode Peekaboo, the insane ending of Negro y Azul, and the whole Jane storyline. Oh yeah, and ABQ. How the hell is that the worst season like so many claim? In my opinion, it's the second best. I absolutely adore it from beginning to end. 5 out of 5. Season 3 is on a similar level in my opinion, and even though quite a few of the opening episodes are relatively slow, the twins are built up more and more until the greatest episode of the whole show comes smack down in the middle of the season, and we get other standouts like Fly in the last 2 episodes all about Gale and Walter clawing at his life. I would also give Season 3 a 5, and it's my 3rd favorite season. Season 4, on the other hand, is the most overrated season. Now, do I absolutely love episodes near the end like Salute, Crawlspace, and Face Off? Of course! But at the same time, I think a lot of people forget about the first few episodes of this season, especially 38 Snub and Open House, both of which are the worst episodes in the whole show. 38 Snub in particular is the only episode in the series that I thought was legitimately bad because it felt so boring and unnecessary. Some stuff happens, but it's like next to nothing, and they easily could have combined it with Open House, but instead it feels like they stretch things out to meet the 13 episode standard. I don't hate this season at all, and because of the last few episodes I still absolutely love it, but even though it has some of the highest highs, it also has the lowest lows by far, so it's my least favorite season, though I'd still give it a 4.5 out of 5. Finally though, we arrive at Season 5, which, come on, from the riveting opening episode with the magnets, to Dead Freight, Walt and Hank's unpredictable game of poker throughout the second half, Todd and Uncle Jack as new villains, Ozymandias, Granite State, and the insanely depressing finale that I barely even want to mention because of how perfect it is, yet how much I also can't bear to witness it, everything about Season 5 is perfect. It is the greatest season in TV history. 5 out of 5. So if you couldn't tell, I love Breaking Bad. It will always have a special place in my heart, and I can't thank everyone who recommended it to me enough, as well as everyone who helped me get to this point in any other way. But for now, I'll just say, thank you.
Yeah, bitch. Chopper gunner, yo. Oh, shit.
This is it, Jesse. This is where it ends. We had a journey of some sorts, yeah. But for me, it was nothing but a cry for help. My greatest fear was always to betray my values. But just for once, I faced it. And now, I'm left with nothing but regret. Don't let yourself be consumed by your hunt for victory, because even if you get what you thought you wanted, it's not what you need. At what cost is success the most important thing? Well, I can tell you, not the one I had to pay. Not at all. I killed myself again and again for nothing. But I could live with the fact that I was trying to reach for something. I could take comfort in the simple thought that I was searching for more. But when you stop searching, when you find what you wanted to, it doesn't solve anything. It's the search that made you want it. not what you searched for. You're never gonna see me again. Same goes for everyone else. And though my name will live on, my true absence won't mean anything. They just made a monument to one action, not to what was behind it. Our world doesn't glorify attempts, it glorifies whatever result it wants to latch onto, and it's already moved on from me long ago. I've attached my new phone number. You can call me once, not a single time more. Only do it when you understand everything I've said, once you get it, once you get my pain. If that ever comes. If you don't, if that doesn't come, if you lie, I will know. I'll see right through it. And I won't let you call ever again. Don't waste your chance. Seize the right moment. Put in everything you've got once it's actually worth it, unlike I did. Don't reach for the stars unless you know for a fact you will not get them. It's over. I'm done. Don't call me back.
Fuck! Shit! Fuck! Estoy aquí. Estoy.
Everything that ever will be.
Hey everyone, if you're watching this, I finally finished the arduous, over 100-hour long task of making my Breaking Bad review, and you're now at the end. So thank you for watching the whole way through, and thank you for supporting me to the point that I'm motivated to make a video that takes 100 hours long and ends up being as long as a damn movie. Yeah, thank you all. And I want to leave you off with the true ending of Breaking Ballartia.
Hey, is this who I think it is? Great. I'd like to work with you on building up the little community of yours. I think I'd be a valuable addition.
Thanks for calling, Jesse. Let's work together.